The breaking point. The crying had reached a pitch that vibrated right through my skull. My 3-month-old daughter, Lily, was red-faced, squirming in her crib, her tiny fists bunched up in pure distress. She had a high fever, a dry cough, and hadn't slept for more than 20 minutes at a time all night. I was running on 36 hours of continuous wakefulness, my eyes stinging, my hair pulled into a messy, grease-stained knot, and my t-shirt covered in spit-up. I was at my absolute limit. I sat on the edge of the bed, rocking her gently, tears stinging my own eyes as I whispered soft promises that everything was going to be okay. Then, the bedroom door kicked open without a knock. My sister-in-law, Amanda, stood in the doorway. She was wearing a silk robe, full makeup, and an expression of utter disgust. She held an overflowing plastic laundry basket in one hand and a half-empty mug of coffee in the other. "Are you deaf, Sarah?" Amanda snapped, her voice piercing through Lily's cries. "I've been calling your name from downstairs for 10 minutes, look at this." She tossed the laundry basket onto the floor near my feet. Designer dresses, delicate blouses, and expensive denim spilled over the carpet. "My clothes need to be washed. Delicate cycle, cold water, line dry only. And while you're down there, make me a fresh pot of coffee and fry some eggs. I have a luncheon at 1. I looked up at her, stunned into silence for a second. "Amanda, Lily has a fever. She's sick, and I'm trying to get her to sleep so I can take her temperature again." Amanda rolled her eyes, taking a sip of her coffee. "Every baby cries, Sarah. Stop using her as an excuse to be lazy. You're living in my brother's house, eating his food and taking up space. The least you can do is make yourself useful around here. My clothes need to be done in an hour, or I'm telling Mark how neglectful you're being." Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud break. It was a cold, sharp realization. For 2 years, ever since Mark's parents passed away and Amanda moved into our spare rooms under the guise of getting back on her feet, I had been treated like unpaid help in my own home. I cooked every meal. I cleaned every room. I handled every piece of paperwork, paid every bill, and swallowed every piece of disrespect just to keep the peace for my husband. Mark always told me, "She's my sister, Sarah. She lost her parents too, just give her time." Time had run out. I looked down at my shivering, crying baby, then looked back at Amanda's arrogant face. "No," I said quietly. Amanda blinked, genuinely caught off guard. "What did you say?" "I said no," I repeated, my voice steadying. "I am not washing your clothes. I am not making your breakfast. I am taking care of my sick child. If you want laundry done, the machine is in the basement. Figure it out yourself." Amanda's face contorted into a mask of rage. She took a step closer, pointing a manicured finger at me. "You will regret that, Sarah. You think you're untouchable because you married my brother? You're nothing. And by tonight, Mark will see what a useless, lazy mistake you really are." She turned on her heel and slammed the door so hard the framed ultrasound photo on the wall shuddered. I sat there in the quiet room, listening to Lily's faint whimpers, feeling a cold calm wash over me. Amanda thought she held all the cards. She thought she was the undisputed queen of this house, protected by her brother's blind loyalty. What Amanda didn't know was that while cleaning out the attic 3 weeks ago, I had stumbled upon a hidden steel box belonging to Mark's late father. Inside that box was a collection of legal documents, financial records, and a secret Amanda had spent the last 5 years paying off people to cover up. She wanted to play dirty. Fine, I was done being the victim. The web of deceit. When Mark arrived home that evening, the tension in the house was thick enough to choke on. I was sitting in the kitchen, feeding Lily a bottle after finally getting her fever down with medicine. The front door shut, and within seconds, Amanda was in the hallway, putting on a performance that deserved an award. "Mark, thank God you're home," Amanda wailed, her voice trembling with practiced sorrow. "I don't know what to do anymore. I tried to be nice, I really did." I stayed in the kitchen, listening as Mark's heavy footsteps moved toward her. "Amanda, what happened? Is everything okay?" "It's Sarah," she sobbed softly. "I asked her politely if she could help me with a few errands today because I've been feeling so weak." She flew into a rage. She threw my clothes onto the floor, cursed at me, and said I was a leech ruining her life. She even threatened to throw me out on the street while you were at work." I heard Mark say a heavy, exhausted sound. "Sarah said that." "Yes, she's been acting so cruel lately. She told me this isn't my family's house anymore and that I'm just a burden. Mark, I have nowhere else to go." Footsteps echoed down the hardwood floor, entering the kitchen. Mark walked in, his suit jacket slung over his shoulder, his face lined with stress and disappointment. He looked at me, then at the empty table, then at his sister standing pitifully behind him. "Sarah," Mark began, his voice tight, "is this true? Did you scream at Amanda and throw her things?" I set the bottle down, wiped Lily's chin with a small cloth, and looked my husband dead in the eye. "No, Mark, it is not true." "She's lying," Amanda chimed in from behind him, dabbing at her dry eyes with a tissue. "Ask her if she washed my clothes. Ask her if she made food." "I didn't wash her clothes because our daughter had a 102-degree fever," I said, keeping my tone perfectly flat. "And I am not Amanda's maid. I haven't been for 2 years, though everyone in this house seems to think otherwise." Mark rubbed his temples. "Sarah, please, she's my sister. We're supposed to be family. Can't you just compromise? It's hard enough with work right now without coming home to constant fighting." "Compromise?" I let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Mark, compromise in this house means I do everything and she criticizes it. She talked to me like I was a dog today while I was trying to care for your sick child. And instead of asking me what happened, you walked in here ready to accuse me." Mark looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight. "I'm not accusing you, I'm just trying to fix this. Amanda has had a hard time since the divorce and losing Dad's estate." "Oh yes, the estate," I murmured, staring directly at Amanda. Amanda's crying stopped instantly. Her posture stiffened. For a fraction of a second, panic flashed across her eyes before she covered it up with a glare. "What does the estate have to do with anything?" Mark asked, looking confused between the two of us. "Nothing," Amanda jumped in quickly, her voice dropping its tearful tone. "She's just trying to change the subject because she knows she was wrong. Mark, if she's going to treat me like this, maybe I should just leave, though I don't know where I'll go with no money." "You're not going anywhere," Mark insisted, holding his hand out to her. Then he turned to me. "Sarah, I think you owe Amanda an apology. Just clear the air so we can have a peaceful evening." An apology? After 12 hours of nursing a sick infant, after months of verbal abuse, my husband wanted me to apologize to the person leeching off our lives. "I won't be apologizing," I said softly. I stood up, holding Lily close to my chest. "In fact, I think Amanda should enjoy her stay here tonight, because things are going to change very, very soon." I walked past both of them, heading upstairs to my bedroom. Behind me, I heard Amanda whispering angrily to Mark, trying to push him to confront me further, but Mark just sounded tired. Once inside my room, I locked the door. I walked over to my closet, pulled down a shoebox hidden under a pile of winter sweaters, and took out a thick manila envelope. Inside were bank statements from 5 years ago, legal affidavits, and a signed loan agreement that Mark had never seen. When Mark's father passed away, he had left a modest inheritance meant to be split equally between Mark and Amanda. But Amanda had claimed the funds were tied up in bad investments made by their father before his death, leaving almost nothing for Mark. Mark, trusting his sister implicitly, never questioned it. He believed his father had simply made mistakes. He didn't know that Amanda hadn't lost that money in bad investments. She had embezzled it. She had forged their father's signature on real estate documents 6 months before he died, taking control of his liquid assets and transferring over $300,000 into an offshore shell account registered in her name. And the reason she was living with us now, it wasn't because she was broke. It was because the IRS was beginning to trace the discrepancies in her father's final tax returns, and she was hiding behind Mark, using his home as a shield while she figured out how to launder the remaining cash. She thought she was safe. She thought no one knew. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I had saved earlier that week, the direct line to the Financial Crimes Division, handling local estate fraud. It was time to tear down the illusion. The trap is set. The next morning, the house was unusually quiet. Mark had left early for work without saying goodbye, his subtle way of showing me he was still upset about my refusal to apologize to his sister. Amanda remained upstairs, likely sleeping off another late night of browsing designer clothes online with her stolen money. I spent the morning taking care of Lily, who was finally recovering, her fever gone and her smile returning. Looking at her innocent face gave me all the strength I needed. I wasn't just doing this for revenge. I was doing this to protect my daughter's future from toxic, manipulative people who would bleed us dry and leave us with nothing. At 11:00 a.m., my phone rang. It was a private number. "Mrs. Miller," a sharp, professional female voice asked. "Yes, speaking." "This is Investigator Vance from the Regional Financial Fraud Task Force. I reviewed the documents you sent over electronically yesterday evening. The signatures, bank routing numbers, and Shell Corporation filings you provided." She paused. "Where did you get these?" "They were in my late father-in-law's private safe in the attic," I explained calmly. "My husband had no idea they existed. His sister convinced him the family estate was completely drained when their father died." "Mrs. Miller, these documents clearly show unauthorized power of attorney transfers executed while the principal was hospitalized," Investigator Vance said, her tone growing cold and serious. "Furthermore, the offshore account listed here matches an ongoing tax evasion flag we've been monitoring. Amanda Miller didn't just take her brother's share. She committed major federal fraud." "What are the next steps?" I asked. "We need to execute a formal audit and interview all involved parties," Vance replied. "However, to freeze the assets before they can be moved again, we need a sworn statement in person, along with the original hard copy documents." "I can bring them to your office today," I said, "but I want to request something." "What's that?" "My husband is entirely innocent in this. He was manipulated into believing his father left him nothing. I want him to hear the truth from you directly, in front of his sister, so there are no more lies." There was a brief pause on the line. "We can arrange a formal interview at your residence accompanied by law enforcement officers to serve the warrant. Say, 6:00 p.m. today." "That works perfectly," I said. "Everyone will be home." After hanging up, I felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it, the point of no return. I spent the rest of the afternoon meticulously preparing. I packed a small bag for myself and Lily, putting it in the trunk of my car just in case things went sideways. I cooked a quiet lunch, kept my composure, and waited. At 4:30 p.m., Amanda finally came downstairs, dressed in another expensive outfit, acting as if she owned the place. She glanced at me in the kitchen with a smirk. "I see you're still here," she sneered, pouring herself a glass of juice. "Mark told me last night that he's seriously reconsidering this marriage if you can't show some respect to his family." I didn't lose my temper. In fact, I smiled at her, a genuine, relaxed smile. "Is that what he said?" I asked pleasantly. Amanda frowned, thrown off by my calm reaction. "Yes, so if I were you, I'd start packing your bags, because when he comes home tonight, we're going to have a serious talk about your future in this house." "You're right, Amanda," I said, wiping down the counter with a cloth. "We are going to have a talk tonight, a very serious one." She stared at me, a flicker of unease passing through her eyes, but she quickly brushed it off, turning on her heel and walking out to the patio. She had no idea that in less than 2 hours, her world was going to crumble to pieces. Exposed. At precisely 5:45 p.m., Mark walked through the front door. He looked tired, carrying his briefcase, his shoulders slouched. He glanced at me standing in the kitchen, his expression guarded. "Sarah," he said, stepping in, "look about last night." "Save it for a moment, Mark," I said calmly, looking at the clock on the wall. It was 5:58 p.m. "Call Amanda down, we need to sit in the living room." Mark sighed, shaking his head. "Sarah, if you're going to start another argument." Before he could finish his sentence, a heavy knock echoed through the front door. Mark turned, looking confused. "Are we expecting someone?" I said. I walked past him and opened the door. Standing on the porch were two uniformed police officers and a tall woman in a sharp dark suit carrying a leather briefcase. Investigator Vance. Mrs. Sarah Miller, Vance asked. Yes, please come in. Mark stepped forward, his eyes wide with shock. What is going on here? Officers, is there a problem? Are you Mark Miller? Investigator Vance asked, stepping into the foyer and displaying her official credentials. I am Investigator Vance with the Financial Crimes Division. We are here executing a federal search and freeze order regarding the estate of the late Arthur Miller. What? Mark paled, looking at me, then at the officers. My father's estate. There's nothing in his estate. He died in debt. Who is making all this noise? Amanda's voice shrieked from the top of the stairs. She trotted down, but stopped dead in her tracks the moment she saw the police uniforms standing in the entryway. All the color drained from her face. Amanda Miller. Investigator Vance turned to face her. We have a warrant for your financial records and a freeze order on all accounts associated with your name and your registered shell entity, Vanguard Holdings. This is a mistake, Amanda stammered, her voice suddenly high and frantic. She backed up against the banister. Mark, tell them this is crazy. Sarah set this up. She's trying to frame me. Shut up for a second, Amanda, Mark yelled, his voice cracking with sudden panic. He turned to the investigator. Ma'am, please explain to me what is happening. My father didn't have any money left when he died. Investigator Vance opened her briefcase and pulled out a stack of folder documents, handing a copy directly to Mark. 3 months before your father passed away, a power of attorney transfer was filed in his name, moving his primary properties and liquid assets into Vanguard Holdings. Vance explained clearly. That entity is registered solely under Amanda Miller's name. Over $350,000 was systematically drained from your father's accounts and funneled into offshore private accounts. Mark stared at the paper in his hands, his eyes reading the lines over and over again. 350,000, but Amanda told me Dad lost everything in the stock market. Your sister lied to you, Mark, I said, stepping beside him. She took your inheritance. She forged your father's signature while he was sick in the hospital. And when the tax authorities started looking into the missing estate taxes, she moved in here, using your hospitality and your house as a hiding spot while she tried to lay low. No, it's a lie. She's lying. She forged those papers. Amanda screamed, lunging forward, but one of the officers stepped between her and me, holding out a hand to keep her back. Miss Miller, the original signed documents were recovered from your father's private vault, Vance said coldly, and forensically matched to your handwriting and digital signatures. Furthermore, we have bank records showing you transferred $40,000 just last week to pay off personal credit card debts. Mark stood completely frozen. He looked at the papers, then looked up at his sister. The illusion was shattered. The blind trust he had held for years collapsed in a single second. Amanda, Mark's voice was barely a whisper, filled with a deep, crushing betrayal. You took Dad's money, you took my money, you let us struggle to pay our mortgage. You let us stress over hospital bills for Lily, while you were sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars. Amanda, seeing that her lies were no longer working, dropped her innocent act entirely. Her face twisted into a snarl of pure hatred. You didn't deserve any of it anyway, Mark, she spat, her voice venomous. You were always Dad's favorite. You got the happy family, you got the clean life. I took what was mine, and you were too stupid to ever realize it. Mark flinched, as if he had been physically struck. Amanda Miller, Investigator Vance said, stepping forward. You are under arrest for grand larceny, financial fraud, and tax evasion. You have the right to remain silent. The officers stepped forward and cuffed her hands behind her back. Amanda thrashed and screamed profanities at me as they led her out the front door, her heels dragging against the driveway until she was placed into the back of the police cruiser. The house suddenly fell dead silent. The fallout. Mark collapsed into the living room armchair, burying his face in his hands. He was shaking, tears spilling through his fingers. I didn't know, Sarah, he sobbed, his voice broken. "I swear to God, I didn't know. I trusted her. I treated you so badly because I thought she was hurting." I stood near the doorway, holding Lily in my arms. I looked at him not with hatred, but with a cold, clear clarity. "You didn't know because you chose not to see, Mark," I said gently but firmly. "Every time she disrespected me, every time she made me feel like a servant in my own home, you took her side. You put her comfort above your wife and your daughter. You let her walk all over us because it was easier than facing the truth." "I'm sorry, Sarah," Mark begged, looking up at me with red, swollen eyes. "Please, I was wrong. I'll make it right. We can take the stolen money back through the legal claim. We can start over." "The money will go through probate court, Mark," I replied quietly, "and you will get what is rightfully yours. But as for us..." I pointed toward the hallway, where my packed suitcase was sitting near the door. Mark's face fell. "No, Sarah, please don't leave." "I need time, Mark, and so do you," I said. "You need to learn what it means to stand up for your family, the family you built, not just the one you were born into. Until you figure that out, Lily and I are staying at my mother's house." I picked up my suitcase, adjusted Lily in her carrier, and walked toward the door. Mark followed me to the porch, begging me to stay, but I didn't look back. I got into my car, strapped my daughter into her car seat, and drove away into the cool evening air. In the weeks that followed, Amanda's world completely dismantled. With the mountain of forensic financial evidence against her, she had no defense. She was convicted of major financial fraud and grand theft, sentenced to 4 years in state prison, and ordered to pay full restitution to her father's estate. Because of the legal discovery, Mark recovered his half of the inheritance, nearly $200,000 after taxes and court fees. As for Mark and me, we didn't get back together right away. It took months of counseling, long conversations, and real accountability from him before I even considered moving back. He had to learn the hard way that loyalty to family isn't blind, and that protecting your household means setting firm boundaries against toxic people, no matter who they are. Standing up for myself that day didn't just stop a bully in her tracks. It saved my daughter from growing up in a house filled with resentment, and it taught me that I will never, ever let anyone walk over me again. Moral of the story: never mistake someone's patience for weakness, and never allow toxic family members to destroy your peace under the guise of loyalty. True family respects you, values you, and lifts you up. They don't use you as a stepping stone. Stand firm in your truth, protect your boundaries, and remember that justice always finds its way to the surface. Thank you so much for listening to today's story on Calm Girl Stories. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of the importance of standing up for yourself, please take a second to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss another dramatic, emotional narrative. This story is inspired by real experiences. We believe that every story carries a lesson that can bring light to others. To protect everyone's privacy, our editors may change names, locations, and certain details while keeping the heart of the story true. Stay strong, stay brave, and until next time, take care.